The War Report Podcast Network.
The first time in the SEC that this is a Red River Rivalry game matchup in the SEC. Number 1, Texas takes on number 18, Oklahoma. A lot rides on this game for both teams. We're going to talk about all of it here, much more on the Sooner Spotlight. What is up, Sooner Nation? Welcome into another very special live edition of a pregame show here on the Sooner Spotlight. I am your host, Josh Mahler. You can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter. That's at Real Josh Mahler. Go check me out on there for all updates on the show and so much more. And then, of course, as always, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. And if you would, just share this on social media. Share it with a friend. Share it with other Sooner fans. Something just to kind of get this thing going, because our goal was to reach 500 subscribers by the end of October. We've been stuck right around that 415 mark and somehow bouncing up and down right there. I'm not really sure who's unsubscribing, but share it with a friend. Share it with some Oklahoma fans, just to kind of get this thing going, because that's kind of been our goal. And we thought maybe even before October started that we were going to be able to reach that, because we got up to that 415 mark and just froze. So please hit that subscribe button and share it with a friend. Share it on social media, something of that nature, just to help us grow. That helps more than you know. And we want this thing to keep on going so we can have a show where we talk with you guys, not at you guys. And we've got so much more in store for this podcast, but we have to get the numbers in order to reach some of these goals that we have set for this show. So let's get into it. Let's talk about this. I guess first, another thing too, you guys can go check out the website. That link is down in the description. The website that we have now for the podcast is called Soonerspotlight.com. So you can check out everything that we do on the podcast and so much more over there. We've even got some blogs. We've been kind of behind on that, trying to get some of that put together, trying to get some extra content. You can check out the merch store where you can check out shirts like this one. Kind of cut off by the overlay down there on the bottom today, but check out shirts. We got hats, so much more. We're trying to get some hoodies and stuff put in there, but we need to sell out some of the other stuff before, kind of get some of that going before we add more to the inventory. So please go check that out. Check out the merch store. That's another great way to help support this podcast directly financially, is checking out the merch store, and you get something in return, right? So go check it out. And we want to do more giveaways. We've done some giveaways so far. We want to do more of that. And so that's the best way to help. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. That's the best way. And it's a live show, so jump in the live chat down below, and we will try to get to everybody's comments one way or another. Apologies for the sinus infection that I've got going on here. I probably sound a little stuffy. That's because I am. But we're fighting through it, and it's Red River Day. It's not even Red River Week anymore. We had 2 weeks of hate week against Texas this week, and it's pretty crazy. We're going to talk about that much more here in just a second. But yeah, guys, let's just go ahead and dive into it, because this is a huge game, monumental game for Oklahoma specifically. For Texas, they just want to be able to hold on to that number 1 spot and keep on moving forward. And they've looked like one of the most well-rounded teams in the nation. I would say just behind Ohio State. I think Ohio State probably deserves that number 1, but I'm glad Texas is number 1. Because I would rather play my rival when they're ranked number 1 rather than if they're ranked number 2 or 15 or not ranked at all, which has been the case in the past, where this is the first time this century that Texas has been a double-digit favorite. Or not this century, but it's been a long time since Texas has been a double-digit favorite in this matchup, which is really crazy. To see that they're 14.5-point favorites as of this morning. Oklahoma's sitting there at the money line plus 550, which means the odds are heavily in Oklahoma's favor, or the odds are heavily against Oklahoma in this matchup, which is just kind of crazy. We're not used to being this big of underdogs in this matchup. It's been a while. Oklahoma's won its last 4 games against Texas when both teams are ranked in the AP poll, 7 of its last 8, and 13 of the last 17 against Texas when both teams are ranked in the AP top 25. So if history repeats itself, this is a good thing for Oklahoma, that they're going against Texas when they're ranked, that Oklahoma is also ranked. this game is a very exciting one when you look at it. Marks the first season, too. I mean, we talked about that just a second ago, how this is Hate Week Part 2. We've had 2 weeks of being able to hate on Texas and Texas hate on Oklahoma. This is the first time, first season since Oklahoma and Texas started playing each other annually in 1929, that both teams had a bye week immediately before the October matchup. So the first time ever that this has happened, where we both have a bye week to prepare for each other, which kind of adds to the excitement of this game, because now with that being added to it, now that you've got both of these teams had an extra week to prepare, it's even a little bit more of a head scratcher, a little bit more, hey, what's going to go on here? What could happen? Because both these teams were preparing specifically for one another for 2 weeks now. So that's something pretty crazy. First time ever that this has happened. It's really only the second time since the 1984 season. We had one in 2006 where Oklahoma has had a bye week before the Red River Rivalry. So we haven't had a whole lot of these where we have a bye week going into Red River Rivalry week. And I guess you can call it the Red River Shootout. I'm pretty sure nobody likes the Red River Showdown, so we're not even going to go there. But yeah, I mean, this game, it's a lot of fun. It's a rivalry that dates back to 1900. I went into all kinds of history and stats about this matchup in my previous episode, so go check that out after this show if you would. Go check that out if you want to learn more about the Red River Rivalry. And of course, Oklahoma leading 17-8 since 2000, 11-4 since 2010. We've won the last 4 out of 5. I mean, you look at this. I mean, Texas fans like to act like they're daddy just because they beat us 49-0 when we went into the game without a game plan, without our starting quarterback. Now we come into the game without 5 wide receivers. Deion Burke's not going to make a start today. He's not going to be on the field from what we know, unless that's something that they were just kind of tricking Texas with, which I don't think is the case. Apparently, we might have a little bit of extra playmakers. I'll just say that much on offense. But yeah, it's one of those things. Without your top 5 wide receivers, I'm not really sure how that doesn't affect this game. And I've seen a lot of Texas media, Texas fans all over social media talking about how Oklahoma's going to use their top 5 wide receivers being out and injuries as an excuse. Well, let's take your top 5 wide receivers. Let's take your top 5 playmakers on offense and see how you fare up. I think that's really extremely unfair to not recognize that, hey, Oklahoma's banged up and they're going to have a hard time doing anything. And that, I mean, on top of depth too. So like you're supposed to be 6 deep on positions, especially your skill positions. You're supposed to be 6 deep. Is that what you're telling me? So I think all of that is kind of bogus. I think ultimately this is going to be a tough game for Oklahoma because they're out top 5 wide receivers. Now, this will be the 3rd consecutive week, if you count the bye week, that we have the same offensive line, which is the offensive line in their positions where they feel most comfortable. And I think they performed pretty well overall against Auburn. They had some down moments for sure. But overall, they protected pretty well. The run blocking wasn't quite there, but we'll see a 3rd week in a row now where they can mesh. They can start to get a little bit of rhythm going, which is really big news for Oklahoma because we've had several different combinations of offensive linemen. You had 3 different, 3 or 4 different centers in the first 3 games. Yeah, I mean, it was just an injury-riddled offensive line that was just really tough to work with. So, that's definitely something to take a look at, that we finally have an offensive line that's put together and that feels whole again. So that's really big news. Of course, we saw Gentry Williams out on the injury report. That was one that I was upset to see because I was really hoping that Gentry Williams would make his return. But we do see Deshaun McCullough is supposed to be out on the field today. That's what I'm really hoping for because Deshaun McCullough and Gentry Williams both had really big games last year. If you remember the goal line stand, Deshaun McCullough was in on at least 2 or 3 of those big-time stops there on the goal line stand last year. One that Oklahoma fans love to look back on, and that feels like the monumental change, the shift where Oklahoma finally has a defense again. So, that's something to take a look at and notice that, hey, Deshaun McCullough being back in the game and helping that second level out quite a bit. I mean, that's a huge thing for Oklahoma. You've got Oklahoma as a double digit underdog right now. Is just, it's one of those things that you have to expect that guys like Danny Stutzman, Ethan Downs, Billy Bowman, and other guys that that were playing in this game, you have to expect that they take that to heart. You have to expect that they look at that and say, you're disrespecting us that much that you think we're going to lose by 2 touchdowns? 2 touchdowns? I mean, more than 2 touchdowns, really, when you put that hook on there. So they're expecting technically a three scores. I find that very disrespectful in this rivalry game, and I think guys like that on the defense specifically also are going to think the same thing. They're going to kind of feel that hatred, feel that disrespect, and come out there with a vengeance, trying to make something of themselves. Because last year we had a little bit of a vengeance because we lost 49-0. This defense hated it, the offense hated it. Dylan Gabriel didn't get to play in that 49-0 loss, and that hurt him. In the fact that he couldn't help his team. He had to sit there on the sidelines and watch them go down that way with an absolutely zero game plan going into it. The worst game plan I have ever seen in my life. But then you go to last year, and Dylan Gabriel showed out. And we'll talk about his performance a little bit and how that relates to this year in just a moment. But it combined 19 Sooners and Longhorns, so 19 on both sides of the offenses. 19 players touched the ball on offense in last year's game, and only 2 of those 19 players are going to return and play in this year's game. So you've got Quinn Ewers and Gunnar Helm, the tight end for Texas, and then Quinn Ewers, who's expected to play. I wouldn't expect Arch Manning to steal the starting position unless Quinn Ewers is hurt or makes extremely big mistakes, and that's just not going to happen. Quinn Ewers is a very good quarterback. I will give him his flowers because he is a good quarterback. Young guy still, too. And it's been disappointing for him because he's been so injury-prone. And being that injury prone, it hurts your draft stock a little bit. And you come into a game like this with an abdominal injury that you're recovering from. That affects a lot of ways. It affects the way that you breathe, the way that you talk. When you scream, you're using your stomach, your abdominal area, your diaphragm comes from the stomach, trying to push that out. So I mean, that's going. Every little thing affects you when you can't even breathe right. When you've got your some sort of abdominal strain. I mean, that's a lot. I don't know how much that's going to affect him today, but that's just something to throw out there, and something that actually my buddy Jay over on Locked On Sooners, he actually brought that up, and I was like, yeah, that's a very good point. I don't know how much it's affecting him anymore, but that's a good point. If it is affecting him even just a little, that could do quite a bit against a quarterback who really isn't as athletic either. So, I mean, something to take a look at. A couple more stats to kind of throw out there, and then I'll jump into the chat. So, guys, please jump in the live chat. Let me know who you think is going to win. I think the one that we threw in there is, what is your favorite Red River rivalry moment? I'll get to those. And then, of course, get your score predictions in as well. We'll get to that at the end. But Oklahoma has won 5 of its last 6 meetings with Texas. I said 4 out of 5, but I wasn't even thinking about the one before that too. So 5 of the last 6, 11 of the last 15, and 17 of the last 25. So I mean, we have owned this rivalry so much. OU's regular season record against top 5 opponents is 11-8 against top 5 opponents since the start of the 2000 season. Best in the nation. Best winning percentage against top 5 opponents in the nation since 2000. Oklahoma has won its last 4 games against Texas when both teams are ranked in the poll, which we already mentioned, so I'm not sure why I'm re-mentioning that, but throwing that out there. And when OU wins the turnover battle since the start of last season, when we saw that defense make a shift, when Oklahoma wins the turnover battle, we are 12-0, including 4-0 this season. The only one that we lost was against Tennessee, and we lost the turnover battle 3-2. So 4-0 this season when we can win that turnover battle. I think that says a lot. I think that says a lot into this game specifically because that's a key to victory, getting turnovers. R. Mason Thomas, got to mention him because he's been a playmaker. He has been one of the biggest playmakers. And then, I'll mention another one here, but R. Mason Thomas is the first Sooner since Charles Tapper in 2015 to post at least 5.5 sacks in a 3-game span. He has been absolutely electric, and I'm pretty sure he had 2 of them against Auburn. But 5.5 sacks, 2.5, something like that against Auburn. But yeah, I mean, he's just been outstanding. He might have had more than that. I think he might have had 3.5 against Auburn. But I don't have that stat pulled up in front of me. And then you've got Robert Spears Jennings, who is the highest rated safety in all of college football, according to PFF right now, which is just big. I mean, you've got defensive players, which is the way that Oklahoma has to play this entire season and the way that Oklahoma has to play specifically in this game, relying on that defense to make big stops, big key plays. You've got things like the Kip 6 that turn that game around at Auburn. Without that turnover, we lose that game. Without that, I mean, honestly, even without that being a pick 6, even if it was just an interception and he went down, I don't know that we win that game. So, I mean, it was a huge monumental, I keep on using that word, a big time shift in momentum. And the fact that it scored saved Oklahoma some time to go down and score again and keep it comfortable. And so, yeah, I think it's really big when you look at where Oklahoma's defense is this season, and then also noticing that Texas has really only faced one defense similar to Oklahoma all season, and that was Michigan. And I wouldn't even say that Michigan is as good as Oklahoma on defense when you look at the way that they've played. So, and a big part of that, too, I can't really rag on Michigan's defense so much, but it's just that Michigan's offense, the biggest game for Texas was Michigan, who literally could not throw the ball to save their life that entire game, this entire season, it feels like. So, that's something to bring up when it's impressive that they beat Michigan in the fashion that they beat them. So that's something to take note of. But Michigan could only run the ball. Alex Orji is not a dual threat quarterback because he cannot pass the ball. So when you look at that win, all you had to do is stack the box and stop them at the only thing they can do, that is run the ball, and you win that game. But Texas did perform that. They did live up to that game plan, and they performed that game plan to perfection. So you have to give them credit for that. But it's not as big of a win as I think a lot of people are making that win out to be, personally. I'm just throwing that out there. But ultimately, Texas has not faced an offense as good as Oklahoma so far this season. And I think that's crazy because Oklahoma's offense is not good this season. When you look at Oklahoma's offense and what they've done this season, they're not great. They're not great at all. Looking at it overall, 3.5 yards per play. You've got, 4.26 yards per pass attempt, 2.96 yards per rushing attempt. That's per carry, but just not a great one. So it's a really poor offense for Oklahoma. And ultimately, when you look at the paper, everything is stacked against Oklahoma in this matchup. It really is. So I think that's something to take note of, and to notice that Oklahoma is just not fit to play this game right now. But ultimately, Texas comes in as a big-time favorite, and that's the reason why they're such big, Oklahoma is such big underdogs. 1 second as I take a quick drink. I have a tickle in my throat that I'm trying to get rid of. Again, I'm fighting sinus infection, so apologies, guys. But anyways, let's go ahead and get to the comment section real quick. I see William, big-time supporter of the program. William says, pressure on Texas if they lose again. What excuse will they have? Refs, coaching? OU expected to lose by 14-point underdogs. Crazy to me. Yeah, William, I totally agree with you, man. It's a crazy thing to take Texas to win by that 14 points, by double digits at all. That to me just seems crazy because this is a rivalry game that dates back to 1900. I mean, this is a rivalry game that in modern era Oklahoma has owned. And specifically, like I mentioned, I'm throwing out all of these other, stats of the record that just shows, how great Oklahoma has been in this rivalry. So, it's just one of those things. It's very shocking to me that they would be such underdogs, but I understand because when you look at it on paper, I actually ran it through my model here, and Oklahoma's expected to score about 12 points, and Texas expected to score about 37. That's the projected model is 37 to 12, something like that. And it makes sense when you compile all these stats together. When you compile everything that Oklahoma's done, everything that Texas has done, it makes sense why we're such underdogs. It really does. But that model can't take into effect that this is the Red River Rivalry, the greatest rivalry game in college football, the greatest regular season game in all of college football. I've mentioned that, and I think tied with the Iron Bowl. I mentioned this in the last episode. Tied with the Iron Bowl for the greatest rivalry in college football. I will say I will give them the respect that they deserve for that. William also says, last year Texas scored 30 points. One score was a blocked punt, and one was a bust in coverage until the last field goal that they hit to take the lead Their offense scored a whopping 13 points. Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we've got going on here, William, and perfectly. I love Oklahoma fans because we've just got stats to throw out there, and Texas just has 49-0 2 years ago. But I mean, ultimately we've owned this. Our defense was the aggressor last year too. They were the aggressor, and that's what we need this year. We obviously need to figure out a running game. That has been something that we have been harping on nonstop on this podcast. We do have Taylor Tatum back. I don't know if I already mentioned that. Taylor Tatum will be back in the lineup this week, so that's really good news. Hopefully he gets plenty of carries. Our resident Tennessee fan, William, says, good luck to you guys today. Appreciate that, and good luck to you guys, too. I'm cheering on Tennessee. We've mentioned that. I've mentioned that several times. I'm cheering on Tennessee. I hated to see them go down last week. That sucked. And I think they have a really big game today, this week against Florida. We have another podcast. I have another podcast that I run called Rising to the Occasion. We just did wrapped up our preview this morning, just right before hopping onto this one. We did our preview, and I think Tennessee wins big in that one. So good luck to your Volunteers as well. And I think we have to kind of cheer for each other in a little bit, because Tennessee wants to have that win look good, and Oklahoma wants that loss to look like a good loss, right? So just for that pure aspect of it, I mean, you have to kind of keep in it there. William Stagg says, you two, as much as I love to hate Texas, we're in the same boat in terms of the SEC. And I'm assuming he's saying what William, our Tennessee fan, says, and we got the Gatos today. I'm assuming that was just a typo, but I love it. Kind of a little bit of disrespect to the Gatos. But the Gators, yeah. I mean, like I said, I think you guys win against the Gators today. I think that's a good game for Tennessee to kind of have their little bounce back for sure. I think Josh Heupel's pissed off and wants to come out there with vengeance and just run up the score too. I think I picked them like 40 to 15, 45-15 or something. Man, like I think they win big, really big. But getting back to the Red River Rivalry. I guess you guys drop that down in the description too. Do you like Red River Rivalry or Red River Shootout? Because I don't mind Shootout, but because I like the idea of it. Obviously, Showdown is just out the window, but I like the Shootout when you think of it like two cowboys walking up in the streets and having a little bit of a shootout and draw. I like that term, but I think shootout in football means high-scoring game, and I don't like high-scoring games anymore, and it's not. I don't think it's going to be that anymore. So that's the only reason why I stay away from shootout, just because what that means to football is not quite the same as the old time. But I like Red River Rivalry because, for one, it's a rivalry game. It speaks to college football. It's kind of a tongue twister, and I always kind of tease. I don't know why I always pick on Louisiana, but I say our friends over in Louisiana, our SEC friends over in Louisiana, have a hard time throwing those R's all together too. So Red River Rivalry is the way that I like to throw it out there. But I see William says I'm OG. It's shootout. Yeah, I mean. I like that one. I do. And I think historically that fits. But just in football terms, that's not the way it's going to be anymore, right? So that's the only reason why I like Red River Rivalry over the shootout. But I know a lot of fans have difference in opinion on that. So it's quite a bit of fun. It's going to be a really great game boiling down to it. When we compare these two teams, obviously, like I said, Oklahoma, just, I mean, outmatched almost in every facet. Let's pull this up real quick and just pull this in here. So, sorry, I didn't have this pulled up beforehand, but I'm going to make sure that I get it pulled up anyways, just to compare the stats. We're going to start off with Tennessee, number 5 in scoring offense with 45 points per game, number 8 in passing yards per game, 322. Steve Sarkisian likes to pass the ball to open up the run game, quite opposite of Tennessee, where Josh Heupel loves to use that run game to open up the passing game. So you're going to see Steve Sarkisian try to open it up by passing the ball downfield. He's gonna be passing the ball a lot. He's gonna try to go over the top of these Oklahoma DBs. Chunk plays have been a weak point for Oklahoma. We haven't had a lot of broken coverages, but we've had a lot of just mismatches in man-to-man coverage. We saw that against Tennessee a couple of times. They had 3 big plays where it was just man-to-man mismatch. And then we saw that against Auburn a couple of times where, you had, I'm drawing a blank on KSJ, right? They had him, and then they also had Cam Coleman. Apologies for drawing a blank on names right now. But Keandre Lambert-Smith, that's who I'm thinking of. KLS, that's what it was. I knew it would come to me. But, so you've kind of got two guys that were kind of breaking out those big chunk plays, and that's kind of been Oklahoma's weakness, is just getting those one-on-one mismatches the other way. Come away with it. Not to drop that. I think that's very important, trying to stop that, because Steve Sarkisian is going to be looking for those explosive plays. He's going to try to go over the top of the Oklahoma defense, try to lure them in with the run game, which the run game is doing really good too. They're ranked 31 in the nation for rushing yards per game at 191 yards per game. They're ranked number 5 in total yards per game. And then see rushing yards per attempt. They're ranked number 9 in rushing yards per attempt at 10 yards per attempt. And we'll talk about Oklahoma's defense and how they've stacked up against the run. But going over to Texas's defense, they're ranked number 2 in scoring defense, only allowing 7 points, just a touchdown and the extra point per game. And then 2nd in yards per game. So they're only allowing, that's passing yards per game. They're only allowing 121.6 yards per game passing. That's crazy. And then they're ranked number 24 at only allowing 170 yards rushing per game. So, I mean, this is a defense that stacks up in the top 10, top 5 many ways, and passing yards per attempt, they're number 1 in the nation. So this is something that we're going to have to try to find explosive plays over the top of Texas the way that they do, although I think the game plan is you have to be able to run the ball, and we'll get to that in just a second as well. But let's jump over to Oklahoma. See where Oklahoma stacks up. Offense looking atrocious. 50th in the nation in points per game at only 28.6 points per game. 114th in the nation in total yards per game at 297.8. We're less than 300 yards per game. That is unheard of from an Oklahoma offense out of 133 teams, I believe, 132 teams, something like that. And real quick, just to hop down there, I see William. He says, I think it was meant to resemble Cowboys and Indians, Texas Cowboys and Oklahoma Indians. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what the shootout is supposed to be for. And that's why I like that name still. I do like, because it's kind of like, two guys coming down the street and you're getting into a draw, a shootout. And I think that's kind of what it is, and I guess maybe in your sense, a shootout between, the Texas and Oklahoma Indians back and forth. I mean, maybe that's what it's supposed to be. I would think probably Cowboys, because it's battle for the cowboy hat, right? The golden hat. But I guess I didn't dive into that part of the history, so that's something I'll have to look up. If you have the answer for me, please throw that down there, William. But jumping back to Oklahoma's offense, I mean, just atrocious. Ranked 111th in passing yards per game with only 169, and then 89th in rushing yards per game, which is surprising that we're that high up, because we've only had 128.6 rushing yards per game. Just it's been atrocious. We were expected to be in the top 100 in all of these this year with a banged up offensive line. Even with the receivers, some of the receivers being out, we only had 3 out to begin with. Now we've got 5 out, so that hurts. The top 5 wide receivers too. It's not just like you have some backups that you can't lean on when you need them to come in for depth. it's your guys that you were expecting to be your starters this year, the guys that were developed, the guys that you were game planning around. That's the guys that you want in the game, and you can't even put them in. But you look over at our defense, that's been our bright and shining point, obviously. But then with Tennessee and Auburn, really Tennessee, I think we performed pretty well. Auburn really kind of gashed that defense in many ways. I think we expected them to run it a lot more, and that's where they got some of those explosive plays over the top with just a mismatch. Again, a mismatch in personnel. I mean, you had Eli Bowen barely get beat on one where I don't think that one went for a touchdown, and then you really had Kenai Walker getting beat several times by KLS, right? Keandre Lambert-Smith, KLS. Yeah, so I mean, I like Kenai Walker a lot. I really do. But I mentioned this last game. I think you have to put Kenai Walker in red zone position. That's about the only time that he's really great. You can't put him in there when there's a ton of field back behind him and he's expected to play one-on-one. He's great zone defense, great zone defender, and he's really good in the red zone. So that's where I think he fits in. Eli Bowen is my top guy, and then Woody Washington. I feel like those are your two guys to rely on. To me, that's what you've got to go with. Also, guys, there is a poll. Make sure to answer that poll. I'll get to that poll here in just a second. Let me see. Let me pull it back up real quick. It was, if I can get this out of my way here. The poll was, who is going to win this game? Let's see. So far, who's going to win the Red River Rivalry? Oklahoma, Texas covering the spread. And I will get to that poll here at the end of the episode as well. So hit what you think is going to be correct in that poll. And then real quick, I'll jump back to William again because he's active in the chat. I appreciate you so much, William. Also, William, check your email too. I don't know if you saw that email I sent back, but I had a code for you that I don't think you've used yet. So check that out. But William says it was a shootout. Then the morality police got a hold of it and waffled between showdown and then the rivalry. Yeah. I mean, I know that they took away shootout and replaced it with showdown. I've always liked Red River Rivalry, though, personally. Going back to Oklahoma defense, though, they've looked much better. And again, like I said, Auburn kind of gashed it to where they're not as good as they once were. Some areas, though, I think they're performing better than most people expected at the beginning of the season. So points per game, 12th, ranked 12th with only allowing 16 points per game. Hey, that is a crazy good stat when we were just allowing over 30 points per game a couple of seasons ago. That's outstanding. Ranked 64th in passing yards per game again. Auburn really blew that open. Tennessee kind of blew that open a little bit, but I'm not too mad with 218 yards per game. I mean, I'm totally okay with that. And then ranked number 22 in rushing yards per game, only allowing 105.6 rushing yards per game, keeping teams under 150 rushing yards, especially teams like Auburn and Tennessee, keeping them underneath 150 rushing yards. That is all I'm going to ask from that defense. So ranking number 22, I mean, there's just been a bunch of other teams that have been good at that. And so I'm totally happy with that. If you're able to keep them under 150 rushing yards. They're also ranked number 8 in rushing yards per attempt, only allowing 2.6 rushing yards per attempt. That's phenomenal. This has been one of the best Oklahoma defenses that we have seen in a long time. And I want to jump over to the defensive players too. You got Danny Stutzman leading the team in tackles, 37 tackles, and then Robert Spears-Jennings at 22 tackles, Billy Bowman at 19, Sammy Omosigo, the cheetah that's stepping in for Kendall Dolby. He's sitting there at 15 tackles on the season. I absolutely love it. So far, we've got Robert Spears-Jennings, Billy Bowman, Kip Lewis, and then also Bray Walker, which is really cool to see him getting one. All of those guys, all 4 of those guys getting an interception so far this year. I want to see Billy Bowman get a couple more. I think he had 6 of them last year. I want to see him beat that this year. And it's been disappointing that he hasn't had his hands on the ball more often, but he's been very good in coverage where people just don't want to, quarterbacks don't want to throw towards him. And I think they've just been smart not going his way. But you've got Robert Spears-Jennings stepping up in that safety spot as well. And then, of course, you've got Eli Bowen back there. Peyton Bowen back there. Eli Bowen, his brother, at the corner spot, which freshman, man, he's been playing outstanding. 2 young guys, super excited to have them on our team. But going on. I don't know. I'm not sure if I've got too much more going into this game. I guess, guys, throw your score predictions. I'm going to get to those here in just a second. I'm going to try to wrap this up here soon. Like I said, we like to keep these around 45 minutes. So let's just go ahead and go straight over to expectations. Let's start off on the offense. We've got Michael Hawkins Jr. coming in here. And I need to see Michael Hawkins throw it 25 plus times this game. Now, I don't want us to lean on that pass game. Like I said, I want us to lean on the run game. So I guess let's start there. Running, we need, we have said this every game, and I'm going to keep on throwing it out there. We need a running back over 80 yards. We haven't had one a single time this season. Not a single running back has had more than 80 yards in one single game. Jackson Arnold has not played in the last game and a half, and he's still one of our leading rushers. I believe ranked second in leading rushers this season. That's pathetic. We need a rusher, whether it's Javonte Barnes, Gavin Sawchuk, or Taylor Tatum. We need one of these guys to step up and run the ball for 80-plus yards. And the way that I wish I had this, actually, Teddy Lehman and Gabe Eicher did a really good breakdown. If you go and watch their, I forget what it's called, Between the Weeds, something like that. If you watch their breakdown of Texas's defense, this is something that I noticed, and they brought it out, and they even kind of exposed it a little more that I didn't even see, is the way that Texas lines up on defense. Pretty much any one of their coverages that they have shown outside of what they've shown against Michigan, which, again, they stacked the box against Michigan and forced Michigan to try to pass the ball, and we're not going to let them run the ball. That's all they did, and that's how they won against Michigan. But the way that Texas lines up against, on defense against their opposing team so far this season, if they keep on showing that to us, we've got room to run the ball. We've got gaps to run the ball. It's all it takes is one linebacker to miss, and you've got a really big gain. And what I need to see is that outside zone. If you're going to run inside zone, I don't like inside zone at all with this offensive line. It just has not worked. We need to run outside zone, specifically with Javonte Barnes. That's the only time you ever see him get any kind of gain is when he's running that outside sweep. So you've got to run outside zone, outside sweep, some kind of buck sweep, something like that where you're pushing them out. I like the counterplay. I think that's worked pretty well for us overall. As long as you get that offensive line and they're looking good and they're able to make that shift for that counterplay, that's going to work really well against this Texas defense where you just have to beat a linebacker and get past a linebacker and you've got a big gain. So the run game has to get going for Oklahoma, and you've got to make this a bloody matchup. You've got to just be the aggressor, and the way you do that is run the ball down their throat. Now, with the run game, I want that run game to be successful so much that we're able to use the passing game, and I want to see Michael Hawkins get like 25 passing attempts. I want to see him use his arm because he's dual threat. What has been Texas's Achilles heel against Oklahoma, against Kansas in the past, against other teams, even Mississippi State kind of showed a little bit with their quarterback being able to at least have a rushing touchdown. Being a dual threat quarterback hurts Sarkisian's defenses in the past, and I think it's still going to be that way. Last year, the way that we won was with Dylan Gabriel's legs. He was able to just see the coverage downfield and see that they're covering everyone and take off running. That is their Achilles heel. We have to, and guess what? We have a dual threat quarterback. We have to use Michael Hawkins' legs in the running game. If he's the guy that ends up winning this game with his legs, I'm okay with that. But you have to give him. I'm not saying he needs to pass the ball 25 times. I should rephrase that. I want 25 attempts. So play calls that are supposed to be passing. Also, get rid of the RPO. I don't want it anymore. Not for this offense. Not for this offensive line. Not for these quarterbacks. But with Michael Hawkins, give him 25 attempts to pass the ball. If he sees open field and takes off running as a dual threat quarterback, I think we win this game. If that's the way that that's the way that this offense works. 25 attempts, 25 passing plays is what I'm saying. The running game has to be opened up for that to work. So ultimately, just the rushing. I need a running back, one of the running backs. We've got three really good running backs. I like Javonte Barnes. I like Gavin Sawchuk. They have their own purpose, right? And then, of course, we've got Taylor Tatum back. Taylor Tatum's that guy that you can run inside zone, and he's going to find yards. He is just that slippery and that good. So if you're going to run anything inside, that's your guy to go to. You can use him out of the backfield, too, and using him in the pass game. So that's something that we need to see. We need to get a running back over 80 yards in a single game this season. I mean, that's something that we've said, I think, every single game so far. It's been pathetic on the running game, and this game plan has been absolutely atrocious for this offense. That's why our offense has looked so poor all season long, because we can't figure out a way to run the ball, and we don't attempt to run the ball enough times. Force that run game to explode open. Force that run game to open up and do something, and make Texas believe that it doesn't matter how bad they are in the run game, they're going to run the ball. We have to protect that run and make sure that we keep on doing it, and force them to squeeze up, force them to press on these wide receivers and hit them over top. We've got fast wide receivers. Zion Reagan's very fast. Jacques Petaway, very fast. We've got guys with speed out there. So I want to see these guys get over top, and we've got to find ways to get explosive plays when we need them the most on offense. Now, jumping over to the defense, let's get 5 sacks at a minimum. 5 sacks. I don't see why we can't. We've got a great defensive line. We've got a great second level with the linebackers. You've got a Cheetah and Sammy Omasigo. I don't know if they'll put Desan McCullough in that Cheetah position a little bit and kind of squeeze him in there, but with him coming back, you can definitely send him in there. And then you've got Ethan Downs on the edge. We've got guys that can press through there. David Stone's a freshman, and they're not going to be able to stop him on the interior. Get back there, get 5 or 6 sacks. I'm going to say 5 sacks. Just set it at a reasonable expectation. And we've got to win the turnover battle. We have got to have, and honestly, if you want my opinion, we have to score once on defense or on special teams in order to win this game. So I'm going to put that on the defense, but I will include special teams in that. We're going to have to score once outside of the offense to win this game. So, I mean, that's ultimately where I feel Oklahoma's at. Oklahoma is a big underdog for a good reason. Oklahoma has not looked good this year, guys, and we have to recognize that. So on paper, if I'm being a professionalist and if I'm being professional in this pick, I'm going to put out my prediction. You guys let me know your score predictions, and I'll get to them here in just a moment. But you know what? First, let's jump to the chat real quick, because I see William's in there blowing up that chat one more time. Again, thanks, William. Let's jump to that chat. We've got William. He says, our DBs just need to challenge more. I agree. They're getting caught with their back to the ball and not able to make a play on it. Yeah, that's been a case a couple of times. I know Billy Bowman should have had an interception that I felt like he should have had in that Auburn game. And then I also think, trying to think of who it was. It might have been Kenai Walker had his back to the ball, where if he would have turned around, I think he makes the interception at the very least, pats the ball away whenever Keandre Lambert-Smith made a big time touchdown catch. So I totally agree. And then William also says, Q Griffin's 5 touchdown performance is one of my favorite OU Texas moments. I like that. I like that as a Texas moment. I think for me, recency bias, I'm going to say the goal line stand. I don't know a time, again, it's recency bias, but it's just that was that swing where we've got a defense that's not going to cave inside the goal line. That's not going to cave inside the red zone. That's going to stand up and show. And ever since then, we've seen that same defense out on the field. I think it's recency bias. That, or of course, the Superman is one of the big ones that you've got to go back to. I think Kyler Murray's huge run on Texas, even though we ended up losing that game, that was another moment that I really loved, because man, like it felt like Sooner Magic was back, and making a return in that game. Trying to think if there's more. Okay, here's one. I think I might put this one up as my all-time favorite moment, and it's such a weird one. CeeDee Lamb makes a catch from Jalen Hurts, and there's a freeze frame of 5 Texas defenders around him, and I've got that picture saved on my phone. There's five Texas defenders around him, and he's on the 20-some yard line, somewhere around there. And somehow he squeezes out and makes a play, makes the touchdown. That might be my all-time favorite, because we end up winning that game. We bring the golden hat back to Norman. And then, CeeDee Lamb. I love CeeDee Lamb. The way that he was able to make something out of nothing, just amazing. William says, I think Hawkins will have at least one big run in this game, but you're right. They have to be able to throw the ball. Yeah, we have to be able to throw the ball. We have to be able to run the ball efficiently in order to pass. Because Steve Sarkisian is going to be guarding that pass, because he knows that we can't run the ball. So I think that's something that we've got to notice. We've got to recognize that we have to force the run on them to squeeze them up to the line and press coverage a little bit and then go over the top. And if they're playing back, even if they're playing zone, I like Michael Hawkins in this. I think he's really good at finding those zones. We saw that several times where he's really good at finding that open area in the zone. William also says, if we make Ewers uncomfortable, we will win this game. He will throw us a couple of picks and possible fumble. I mean, yeah, it happened last year. Last year he had 3 turnovers, and that was basically the changing point in that game was those 3 turnovers. We ended up winning because we were the aggressor. We were the ones taking that ball away, keeping that ball in our hands. And of course, that last 1 minute and 17 seconds, 1 minute 15 seconds, something like that on the clock, go down and execute that perfectly. And yeah, I mean, was it 137? Is that what it was? I'm drawing a blank now, but another big time moment. Recency bias, I guess. Big time moment is Dylan Gabriel's whole drive down there. The way that he performed in that drive, just perfect execution. Drake Stoops with knowing to just cut upfield rather than dance around because you don't have time to dance around. Just cut upfield and do something. And then the fact that we run the ball down on inside the 5 and just kind of waste some clock a little bit to snap the ball and score the touchdown the very next play. It was more or less just being very gutsy with it, but it turned out to be a really good decision. So things like that. And then of course Nick Anderson catching the touchdown. I think that's definitely a big time moment. But let's get to prediction. Prediction time for me. If I'm being a total professionalist about this, I look at the paper. Oklahoma has no chance in winning this game. So if I'm being professional about this, and my official pick, if I was looking at this game from the outside in, I'm not an Oklahoma fan, then if I'm not an Oklahoma fan, I don't know about Sooner Magic. If I'm not an Oklahoma fan, I don't know about this rivalry and how special it means to each team and everything that goes around it. Again, go back and look at the last episode that we just dropped earlier this week for more history around this rivalry, around the Golden Hat, all of that stuff. That was a lot of fun to dive into the history and the record of this rivalry. So if I'm not an Oklahoma fan and I'm being unbiased, I'm saying Texas wins this game. They're not going to cover the spread, though. I just don't see that because even if I'm not an Oklahoma fan, I recognize that 14.5-point spread is just crazy. So if I'm not an Oklahoma fan, I'm saying Texas wins this. 28-24 is what I would pick. Just coming away with a pretty good win. And that's ultimately what my professional pick would be. But I am an Oklahoma fan. I have faith in this team. I know what this team is capable of. I know that there's such a thing called Sooner Magic. Michael Hawkins, late touchdown to win the game, Oklahoma 31-28. That is my Oklahoma biased pick just because I'm a fan. I'm going to be cheering for my team. I'm never going to pick against my team. So reasonably, I think Texas wins this game. If I'm being realistic about this, I think Texas wins this game 28-24, but there's just that Sooner Magic is alive. We just saw it against Auburn. Both teams had a bye week leading up to this. Both teams are going to be prepared. I think honestly, Oklahoma did not benefit from that as much as we hoped. We didn't get the guys that were injured back in. We couldn't get Nick Anderson or Jalil Farouk or Andrell Anthony back in. We couldn't get Deion Burks back in. So, I mean, that's big for Oklahoma. That hurts Oklahoma. I think as long as we don't turn the ball over and we're able to win that turnover battle, that's where I just feel like if we're able to get a touchdown outside of the offense, I feel like we have a very good chance in winning this game just because this is a crazy game. We are the best team that Texas has played this year, no matter what people want to say. I truly believe that, and I think Oklahoma has a chance in this, guys. And I think just about everyone has to recognize that Oklahoma has a chance. How much of a chance they're willing to give Oklahoma, that's totally up to them. And I think Texas fans would say we're going to have another 49-0. That's not going to happen. I think this is a close matchup, and so again, Texas 28-24 would be my professional pick, my homer bias pick. Oklahoma scores a touchdown to go ahead. 28-31. Michael Hawkins, I want to see him have a huge game. But guys, I appreciate all of you so much for all the love, all the support. Again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Go over to the merch store, check it out. We've got shirts like this one, Texas, and then you've got to buy a vowel to finish that off. We've got all kinds of stuff. The hat, too. We've got so much more. Go check it out. We want to add more to the merch store, so we need to see you guys, jumping in that merch shop and and really starting to buy some of the stuff off the shelves. I do see William Stagg says 24-16 Oklahoma with Texas getting 1 touchdown, 3 field goals. One of our touchdowns is set up by defense. That's the perfect recipe for a win, William. I totally agree with you. I hope that can win. Guys, happy week 7. Happy Red River Rivalry day, shootout day. Man, I'm super excited for this game. I think this is the biggest game of the season because this is number 1 that we're going against. Don't forget that. And it's Texas. We want to do that. Horns down. We'll catch you all next time. Make sure to join us tomorrow for the post-game show. We'll try to do that at noon Central Time. So make sure to join us then. Again, go check out the merch shop. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.